So I started reading The River of Doubt, book you recommended to me on Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
So that guy's badass on many levels, but I didn't realize how much of a naturalist he was, how much of a scholar of the natural world he was. So that book details his journey into the Amazon jungle. Um, what do you find inspiring about Teddy Roosevelt and that whole journey of just saying fuck it, of going to the Amazon jungle, of taking on that expedition?
Well, I mean, Teddy Roosevelt, you could write volumes on what's inspiring about him. I think that, he was a weak, asthmatic little rich kid that wasn't physically able, that had no self-confidence, and he was very and he had pretty severe depression. He had tragedy in his life, and he was very at least for me, he's been one of the people, like one of the first historical figures where he wrote about the struggle to overcome those things. And to make himself from being a weak, asthmatic little teenager to sort of strengthening himself and building muscle and becoming this barrel-chested lion of a guy who could be the president, who could be an explorer and one of the Rough Riders. And he's just everything he does is so hyperbolically, incredible. To come out of war and have the other people you fought with go, this guy has no fear.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have just been a psychopath and had no fear. And then proving it further was that thing where he was going to give a speech to a bunch of people and he got shot in the chest.
Yeah.
And it went through his spectacle case and through his speech. And even though the bullet was lodged in his chest, this man said, "Don't hurt the guy that shot me." I believe he asked him, "Why'd you do it?" And then as he's bleeding and in the rain, said, "No, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm going to keep going with the speech." What a badass. That's incredible.
But going to the jungle on many levels is really difficult for him at that time. There's so many things so many more things even than now that can kill you. All the different infections, everything.
Yeah.
And the lack of knowledge, just the sheer lack of knowledge. So that truly is an expedition. A really, really challenging expedition. So there's lessons about what it takes to be a great explorer from that. The perseverance. How important do you think is perseverance in exploration, especially through the jungle?
I think it's all there is. If you hear about the people, and I think that is a tremendous metaphor for life, because whether you hear about that plane that crashed in the Andes and the people were alone and freezing and they had to eat each other, and some of them made it out. Some of them kept the fire burning. And Teddy Roosevelt voluntarily, after being president, threw himself into the Amazon rainforest and survived. Came so close to dying, but survived. And so perseverance is all of it. I mean, I think that's our quality as a human.
So they also mapped, so on the biology side is interesting.
Yeah.
But they mapped and documented a lot of the unknown geography and biodiversity. What does it take to do that? So when I see you move about the jungle, you're always like, you capture a creature, take a picture, write down, like, so you can find new creatures, find new things about the jungle, document them, sort of a scientific perspective on the jungle. But back then, there's even less known, much less known about the jungle. So what do you think it takes to document, to map that world, that new unexplored wilderness?
I mean, they're clearly pressing botanical specimens. They're probably shooting birds, and Roosevelt knew how to preserve those specimens. I mean, he really was a naturalist, so he knew exactly. So if he's seeing these animals, to them, whereas we'll take a picture and identify it, they were harvesting specimens, taking them with them, drying them out. For them, it was totally different, and it could be the first. There's, I don't know, I forget what JJ said. There's something like 70 species of ant birds here, and it's like, so how likely are you to be the first person to ever see this one species of bird? And so for them, and you have this bird, and so perfectly preserving that specimen. And I think a lot of non-scientific people don't realize that every species, from blue whale to elephant to blue jay to sparrow, whatever it is, whatever species we have on record, they're scientific specimens. And the first people to see them shot them. And there's museums are filled with these cataloged, preserved birds that these explorers brought back from New Guinea and South America and Africa, and then put into these drawers. And and now we labeled them, and we said this is
Yeah.
this is red and green macaw, this is scarlet macaw, this is brown crested antbird, and it's just they're just categorized.
That book of birds you have, like encyclopedia of birds. What
the human achievement in these pages.
for people listening? Paul's just flipping through a huge number of pages. These are just. Is this in the Amazon or is this in Peru?
This is just here. This is birds of Peru. Dude, pages on pages of toucans and arasaris and hummingbirds and antbirds and smoky brown woodpecker and tropical screech owl, which we just heard, by the way. It's endless. Who knew there were so many birds? I had no idea there were so many birds.
Documenting all of that, analyze. I mean, there's also, which we got to experience, and you're pretty good at also, is actually understanding and making the sounds of the different birds.
Yeah.
What's your favorite bird sound to make?
Undulated tinamou, because in the crepuscular hours of dawn and dusk, they're usually the ones that make up what is considered by many to be the anthem of the Amazon.
Can you do a little bird for us?
That's what a undulated tinamou sounds like, and it's usually like, oh, it is getting to be afternoon. It's almost like hearing church bells on a Sunday. It's like there's something about it. You go, there he is.
And like you were saying, it's a reminder. Oh, that's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Surrounded by friends.
I have so many friends here.